What is visualization, and how can it benefit our lives? Over the years, many people have worked to figure out exactly how the human body works and how we can most efficiently use the tools at our disposal. We have the opposable thumbs, we have the memory power, and we have the ability to craft and create. But sometimes it seems that humans simply lack one crucial element to success: self-discipline. In fact, the longer we go through life, the more baggage we seem to pick up. We learn from experiences that often teach us to believe that we lack power in our own lives and that the efforts that we put into our goals will not be worth the reward. Maybe we begin to talk ourselves out of believing that we are capable of achieving the goals that we want to set for ourselves. Maybe when we are young, we have people who tell us that we have our heads in the clouds and that doing the things we love simply isn't an option. These kinds of situations can often leave us feeling discouraged and withdrawn. We may even begin to feel silly for wanting to shoot for the stars or for believing that we may have any power over our own destinies. Maybe we want to think that we can accomplish something and then someone else makes fun of us or questions why we care about the things we care about. Over time, without the proper support and without successes in your corner to keep your confidence boosted, it can become very difficult to keep our eyes on our true desires and instead force ourselves to stay complacent with the lots that we have drawn. But we don't have to stay stuck with the short end of the stick. In fact, nature has provided us with all the tools we could ever ask for when it comes to achieving our most important goals. Our brains are powerful computers that can help us to thrive. However, if they are used the wrong way, they can also be our greatest obstacles. If over time you have been weighed down by baggage like in the previous examples, you may find that it is incredibly difficult for you to actually make progress toward your goals. You may not even think that you are worthy of success. Some people even question whether they are worthy of being loved at all, which is just silly. Everyone is worthy of living their version of their best life. And our brains, if they aren't subconsciously holding us back from making the moves that we need to make to improve our lives, can actually help us to attract exactly the right opportunities to help us to thrive. Back in the 1970s, athletes in the Soviet Union began to practice a technique that soon caught on across the world. These athletes would purposely think about detailed performances on the field. They would let the images play in their minds and practice mentally in their downtime while their bodies were resting. The art of visualization actually helped these athletes to hone their reflexes and perform better on the field. And ever since then, it has become a popular technique for many athletes across many varieties of sports. Why? Because it works. Our brains are the stewards of our bodies. They help to direct us in the directions that we have to go, and they give us the power to make lasting changes in our lives. To some extent, they control our reflexes, they control our movement and speech, and our reaction time. Depending on other bodily factors, by training our brains with visualization exercises, our daily performance in certain areas can reach new heights. And ever since that became apparent in sports practices, people have been looking into other ways that this reality can apply in a way that can change our lives. You don't have to have a good imagination for visualization to work, although it may help. But what you do need to do is to be able to picture a scenario in your mind's eye and see that scenario going as well as it ever possibly could. In doing so, you are preparing your mind for events that are to come, and because it has run through this event already and seen how it should best be performed, it has already become primed to respond to the future events in a productive and helpful way. Visualization relies on the concept of the law of attraction. The law of attraction states that whatever our mind is focusing on is what we are most likely to attract into our own lives. For example, if you keep replaying negative situations in your mind and seeing ways that you have been led down by others rather than focusing on positive things, then you are more likely than not going to attract more of the same negative energy into your life. Negativity can easily cause us to spiral downward and get stuck in a rut, and that rut can easily lead us to feel discouraged and unworthy of positive changes in our lives. However, if we are focusing on the positive, and valuing it and focusing our energy into attracting more of the same positive energy so that we can thrive, then we are going to be able to experience more positive things than negative, and because our minds are focused on a specific goal, our minds will be constantly working on ways that we can achieve that goal and reach our desired income. A popular notion for those who are learning visualization techniques is that it is important to train our brains to live as if we are already accomplished in the areas that we want to be accomplished. This will help us to have more confidence and to recognize the steps we can take and the opportunities we are presented with to help us to move forward in our lives and to create the ideal situations for us. The basic principle is that the things we think will eventually begin to shape our reality. So if we are fixated on the negative, we will attract more negative. But if we focus on the life that we most want to live, then that is what we will attract to ourselves. And that is always the most productive thing we can do.